Prejudice and Zombies. Performance in the Rowdy by Elk Grove High School speech team.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that a zombie in possession of brains must be in want of more brains. A mysterious plague has fallen upon the quiet village of Meryton,
and the dead are returning to life.
Never was this truth more plain than the recent attack at Netherfields Park,
in which a household of 18 was slaughtered by a horde of the living dead.
Netherfield Park is occupied once again
by a young man of large fortune.
Mr. Bingley, a single man of 4 or 5 thousand a year, would buy things for our girls.
How so? Can he train them the art of swordsmanship and musketry? The business of Mr. Bennet
was to keep his daughters alive.
And the business of Mrs. Bennet
was to get them married.
Such joys are scarce since the good Lord saw fit to shut the gates of hell and doom the dead to walk amongst us.
The girls shall continue their training as ever. Bingley or no Bingley.
Elizabeth and her sisters have been under the tutelage of Page Lyon, Shaolin master of the martial arts residing in Henan province.
To learn my teachings, I must first teach you how to learn.
It was there that the girls spent many a long day being trained to endure all manner of discomfort.
Master Lear, and what should happen when encountered by an opponent on horseback?
Cut down their horses first when we meet them on the ground.
Not so. Remember, it is far more expedient to take one head from a man than 4 legs from a horse.
But I don't understand.
He who questions training only trains himself at asking questions.
Master Lear had trained the girls in the mastery of a dozen fighting styles
and a focused specialization of various weapons.
Lydia and her throwing stars. Kitty and her quarterstaff.
Mary, her twin hatchets. Jane, her daggers. And of course, Lizzie and her katana.
At the instance of Mrs. Bennet, the ride to Netherfield Park was altogether agreeable.
Save for a brief encounter with a small herd of zombie children.
No doubt from Mrs. Beechman's home for orphans, which had recently fallen along with the entire parish of St. Thomas.
The Bennets attended the ball, hosted by the newly occupying Mr. Bingley and his party.
What a wonderful husband he'd make.
Charlotte Lucas, do you think of nothing else?
As a closest friend, Lizzie, I feel it 'tis my duty to remind you that zombies or no zombies, a woman must think of marriage.
I shall never relinquish my sword for a ring.
For the right man, you would.
The right man would ask me to.
If I can see but one of my daughters happily settled in Netherfield, and all the others equally well married, I shall have nothing to wish for.
Charles Bingley, pleasure to make your acquaintance.
My daughters, all of impeccable character.
May I introduce my dear friend, Mr. Darcy of Derbyshire?
Mr. Darcy owns half Derbyshire, £10,000 a year at least.
Charlotte.
Miss Bennet, may I be so bold as to request the next 2 dances, if you're not otherwise engaged?
I am not amused.
Good for you, Mr. Bingley. You chose the loveliest of my daughters.
Mother!
Dancing to be the first refinement of Polish society. Don't you agree, Mr. Darcy?
Every savage can dance. Why, I imagine even the zombies could do it with some degree of success.
Oh, Darcy, I hate to see you just standing there. You must dance.
You're dancing with the only handsome girl here. There's not another girl in the room whom it would not be a punishment to me to dance.
Oh, I believe all of her sisters are very pretty. One, just across the room, is very pretty and, dare I say, very agreeable.
She is tolerable. Not handsome enough to tempt me, not any other man here apparently. I'm in no humor at present to give consequence to young ladies who are slighted by other men.
Mr. Darcy, you insufferable.
Oh my god.
You must lash out with every limb, like the octopus who plays the drums. Learn to hide your strikes from your opponent boldly strike his hide. When you doubt your power, you give power to your doubt. When you can balance untouched on the other hand, you will head up your foe to the more balanced attack.
From the corner of the room, Mr. Darcy watched Elizabeth and his sisters work the way I would.
Beheading zombie after zombie as they went.
I know of only one other woman in all of Great Britain who wielded a dagger with such skill, such grace, and deadly accuracy.
Apart from the attack, the evening went on pleasantly for the whole family, and Mrs. Bennet had seen her eldest daughter much admired by Mr. Bingley.
Charlotte, you're right. Oh, of course, I must have bumped my ornamental in the ensuing battle.
Oh, quite relief. I was for a moment fearful you'd been condemned to serve Satan and recruited to join the army of the damned.
Oh, nonsense. Poor Charlotte to be called only tolerable by Mr. Darcy.
I could easily forgive his pride if he had not mortified mine. I dare say I would have cut his throat had not the unmentionables distracted me from doing so.
Pride is a very common failing, I believe. By all that I have ever read, I am convinced that it is very common indeed. Pride and vanity are different things, though the words are often used synonymously. A person may be proud without being vain.
Elizabeth presently drew her katana and cut off Lydia's head.
Ah!
Oh God.
The others looked on in a state of silent shock as a torrent of blood sprang forth from Lydia's neck, staining their dresses. I beg you all forgive me, but I could stand her prattling no longer.
However, when she sped another glance toward Lydia, she was surprised to see her head was very much attached.
Elizabeth sighed. If only she could really cut off Lydia's head.
Pride relates more to our opinion of ourselves, vanity to what we would have others think of us.
There will be an addition to our party for dinner, dear girls. Meet my cousin and your future landlord, Mr. Collins. For it is he who will be inheriting Longbourn when I am gone.
Excuse me, Parson Collins. For having entering the priesthood, I have been so fortunate as to be distinguished by the Right and Honorable Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
Heavens! He works for Lady Catherine, whose skill with blade and musket are unmatched, and who has slain more unmentionables than any woman known.
Yes, second only to this lovely creature. My dear Elizabeth, seeing as you seem quite unspoken for me, give me your hand. May I say, as soon as you entered the house, I singled you out as my companion and future wife.
Elizabeth briefly considered fleeing the uncomfortable scene developing in that moment.
But you could not bear live with the dual shame of insolence and cowardice.
She has considered killing Mr. Collins.
Why?
Altogether.
But the fear of Lady Catherine's vengeance snuffed out the idea.
I will require you to retire your talents of slaying the stricken as part of your marital submission. We can buy some new pots and pans to take place of your swords and daggers.
You forget that I have made no answer. Let me do it without further loss of time. No.
My dear God, seeing as you seem quite unspoken for, may I say as soon as you entered the house, I singled you out as my companion.
Oh my God.
And future wife.
I mean, Mr. Collins, I'm flattered, of course.
Oh, wonderful. But please, may I introduce you all to my patron, Lady Catherine de Bourgh. Lady Catherine. Charlotte, are you feeling ill, Charlotte?
Hi. Miss
Collins tells me that you're all schooled in the deadly arts, Miss Bennett.
Oh, we are. Though not to half the level of proficiency your ladyship hesitate.
Oh, then, sometime or other I shall be happy to see you spar with one of my ninjas. I assume you were schooled in Japan?
No, your ladyship, in China.
China? Are those monks still selling their clumsy kung fu to the English? I take it you mean Shaolin.
Yes, your ladyship, under Master Liu.
Well, I suppose you had no opportunity. Has your father more means, he should have sent you to Kyoto. Have your ninjas left you?
We never had any ninjas!
No ninjas? How is that possible? 5 daughters brought up in one home without any ninjas? I've never heard of such a thing. Then who protected you when you saw your first combat?
Compared with some families, I believe we were. But such was our desire to prevail and our affection for each other that we had no trouble vanquishing even our earliest opponents.
Yes, well, I trust you've met my nephew, Fitzwilliam Darcy. Quite an accomplished and skilled fighter of the undead in his own right.
Nephew.
Lady Catherine! Might I take this opportunity to compliment you on your pantaloons? And your eye patch! Very fetching, is it? Function... Function.
Charlotte, are you sure you're all right? You sure? Oh my! These young Miss Lucas is rather anxious to be alone tonight.
Mr. Collins, may I introduce to you Mr. George Brigham? I trust to find his pedigree rather agreeable. He's a lieutenant.
Are you going to be stationed to go with him, Mr. Wickham?
Well, that depends entirely on what the enemies have in store for us, Miss Bennett.
I must know, Mr. Wickham. What is amiss between you and Mr. Darcy?
Are you much acquainted with him?
More than I wish to be. He's been here for less than an hour and already the least popular man in the room. It is your turn to say something now, Mr. Darcy. You ought to make some sort of remark on the size of the room, or the number of couples, or anything. Any small observation to assure me you are still among the living, lest I mistake you for a hellspawn dreadful, and strike you down for the safety of the other guests.
Very well. That reply will do for the present. Perhaps by and by I may observe that private balls are much pleasanter than public ones.
On the contrary, I find that balls are much more enjoyable when they cease to remain private.
Yes, it always gives me such great pain to see him. Darcy and I grew up together. His father treated me like a second son. He bequeathed me with his best living and his gift. However, when he was slain in the Second Battle of Kent, Darcy ignored his father's wishes and instead gave my living to another man.
What could have induced him to pay you so cruelly?
Pride.
Tell me, Mr. Darcy, do you never allow yourself to be blinded by prejudice?
May I ask what these questions tend?
Merely to the illustration of your character. I'm trying to make it out.
Reports may vary greatly with respect to me, and I could wish, Miss Bennett, that you were to not sketch my character at the present moment.
Mrs. Darcy's treatment of you has been utterly despicable.
No more despicable than his treatment of you and your family.
I don't understand you, sir.
Mr. Darcy will persuade Bingley to steer clear of your sister and leave Netherfield. He will feel your sister too low for him, just like he thought me too low to inherit his father's estate. Miss Bennett, run away with me.
You forget, sir, that I am a student of Shaolin, master of the seven-starred fist.
The dreadfuls are coming! The dreadfuls are coming!
speak unless we expect what we say to amaze the whole room, or be regarded uncommonly clever, not to mention the accomplished slayers of evil.
A faithful portrait, undoubtedly.
Excuse me, I do hate to be a bother, but is it too uncommon a response when proposing to a lady she finds it in her disposition to, in turn, bite you? Oh, God! Let's move on!